Live show. My name is Chad. As y'all can see, we don't have Greg today. Greg is a little bit under the weather, so we're gonna ride it solo. So I figured it'd be a fun little, we'll call it adventure, to talk some motorsports. Have you guys, ask any questions or any of that sort of fun stuff. Just have a nice little conversation. Basically just see where it goes. You guys kind of have the con, so to speak, tonight. So let's just reload, and let's just see. First and foremost is why does so I don't know about you. Anybody who's watching on Facebook, the it's not coming up as a video. It's coming up as a reel on desktop. On mobile, that's fine, but here it's kind of annoying. If I'm not, if I can be honest. At any rate, is there a way to view this? Copy link. There we go. Okay. All right, we're good on the YouTube. Fantabulous. All right, so first things first, I guess I'll just start rambling here until some of you in here. Freddie, what's going on, my man? Welcome to the show. How you doing this evening? We are all good. Got a chance to watch a decent amount of motorsports this weekend, so hopefully I can talk about all of it. So first things first, I wanted to kind of touch on, and I did a video on this yesterday. Is this whole actually what I should probably do? Let's open this up. I can't mute it. That's brilliant. All right. First things first, I wanted to talk about. Like I said, I made a reel about this yesterday. Gosh, I'm doing well at remembering that. Holy shnikes. Is this whole charter nonsense that's going on? The whole, we'll call it the lawsuit between 2311 and Front Row Motorsports and NASCAR, and how 2311 and them are claiming that NASCAR is a monopoly, and the whole crux of it is an antitrust suit, which means effectively they're claiming that NASCAR is running as a monopoly, which isn't exactly all that legal here in the States. I mean, there are some legalized monopolies. For example, like the Post Service, United States Postal Service. That's technically a legalized monopoly that with pretty obvious federal oversight. But everything else, so at the crux of it is this whole charter system, this whole pay-to-play system, this whole concept of number one, the teams get safety and security on the just being in the show, but on the flip side, they kind of tell you, you sign this, you're guaranteed on the grid, you have a tangible asset that you can sell or lease or what have you, but you can't do anything without NASCAR approval, without it being a NASCAR sanctioned event or anything like that. So while that kind of makes sense from when you look at it from the standpoint of it kind of makes sense from the standpoint like, hey, like you don't want, if you're NASCAR, you don't want your teams taking your cars and going and racing elsewhere that isn't NASCAR. Kind of makes sense, right? But on the other hand, They can't do any sort of private appearances, whether it be just a meet and greet with fans or a sponsor event. Like, say it's, I don't know, say it's the sponsor's M&M's, and they want to go to M&M headquarters and do an event there. They can't do it unless NASCAR says okay. The other part of this that I didn't really cover in the video I made was the notion that, and every sport goes through this. Every sport, it feels like, revenue sharing, right? You see the whole nonsense with it in the WNBA. Like, sure, you can have 50% of the millions of dollars it's lost. But NASCAR, on the other hand, makes a pretty good chunk of change. And NASCAR is sitting here saying things like, yeah, but you get 50% or whatever of the revenue. But it's not, it doesn't really work out that right. Like the TV rights, the teams don't get that revenue split and everything. So, the NASCAR side of things, or I'm sorry, from like a business side of things, this has gone to court, which is never a good thing. And because like I said in the video, like if the court does rule in 2311 in Front Row Motorsports' favor, it creates a massive mess. Like, what do you do with the charters? Do you amend the charter agreements, or suddenly are the charters not worth anything? Or it just creates this huge mess where, it kind of throws the whole sport into chaos. On the other side of it, it then tells teams that, yes, you can go and you can start your own NASCAR series, or stock car series, I should say. NASCAR is the sanctioning body. Stock car, cup car is the car. It's kind of like, it's kind of like when you look at sports car racing, right? You have the GT class, which is made up of GT3 cars. You have the LMP2s. You have the hypercars / LMDH cars, right? But they race in World Endurance Championship and they race in IMSA. IMSA and WEC are the sanctioning bodies. And they're partnered and they share things and everything, but they're not owned by the same people. IMSA is actually owned by NASCAR, so kind of funny there. And as an interesting thing, in IMSA, the manufacturers have to pay to play. And it's not even just for a guaranteed spot on the grid. It's they pay to play full stop. If you want in, here's the fee. However, it's a lot looser because obviously sports car racing is global and nobody's really going to sign up for IMSA if you're told you can't take the car and go race at Le Mans or another high-profile World Endurance Championship race, and so on. So the biggest thing with this is that, could it lead to a split? Well, NASCAR owns pretty much all of the marquee tracks, right? Daytona, Talladega, just go down the list. So Startup Series is not going to have track recognition, so they're going to need name recognition. And unfortunately for them, the current state of the NASCAR Cup Series is, and this isn't taking anything away from the dudes who are racing. They seem like good dudes. They seem like, good people. They're talented, all this. But it isn't exactly the late 90s, early 2000s when it comes to personalities, right? And that's what drove NASCAR's popularity. The cars were effective. Especially now, the cars are effectively a spec car. They're all running the same chassis. They all have, bodywork that looks like the OEMs, but closely regulated, so they all effectively have the same performance. There is some differences here and there, and what have you, but it's, so the on-track action and the personalities are what really drive the sport. I mean, NASCAR's boom in popularity was down to two things. Number one, you had the Dale versus Jeff Gordon rivalry that skyrocketed popularity. But people were tuning in because IndyCar did their own little split thing. CART and IRL. Kart had the cars with a little bit more technology, high horsepower, bigger budgets, all that, where IRL was really inexpensive, comparatively speaking. You know, they were using production-based engines. That's when Infinity, Oldsmobile, a lot of these guys came in. Were like, hey, we can do it because it's cheap. Well, fast forward a few years, and people stopped really paying attention to IndyCar, unfortunately. And you could argue that IndyCar before the split was more popular than NASCAR. And NASCAR sees this huge boom, and even though IndyCar has come back together, they're still nowhere near the popularity of what NASCAR is. And NASCAR has been doing its best to kill its popularity in the last few years. Between this playoff system that, and we'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But like you have the new car, you have the playoff system. It's not like overly complicated, but like when I'm watching a regular season race, I'm like, cool, dude won a stage, dude won a race, so he's in the playoffs. The fuck else is going on, right? And I know playoff points and all the other sort of stuff, but to like a casual viewer who doesn't watch every week, or who's like, hey, I used to what the heck are they talking? You know, there's just, it leads to confusion. And then you have the notion like last year when Joey Logano wins the championship, and then at the cutoff for the playoffs, so he was 200 points behind the first place guy. That is it's pretty insurmountable. There's not many championships have been won with that, with 11 races to go. I'm sorry, 10 races to go. So it takes away from sort of the validity of the championship, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you any of the championships that Dale Earnhardt won, or like Logano's championship last year is not even on that level. Like, not even close. It's not even close to Jimmy Johnson's championships, Jeff Gordon's championships. Go down the list. So yeah, Sean, what's going on, my man? How you doing? How's your new toy running? I think for the first time in many months, Sean has a car with a manufacture date that starts with a 2. So he's moving up in the world. So yeah, you know, and then of course, if you've watched a lot of our videos, you'll know that like the car itself, you know, we saw a lot of this past weekend at Darlington. Darlington's a special animal all on its own, regardless of car type. You know, but it's really easy to shut the air off to the car behind you and therefore take all his grip. So passing's harder there than it is passing's already difficult, and it's made even more difficult at Darlington because it's kind of narrow and all this other sort of stuff. Sean's new fancy car, the car currently has no battery and the 12 volt ports died. So going well by your usual standards, or by his usual standards. I mean, sure. I mean, when you say the ports are bad, you mean the connectors for the terminals, or like, I don't even know where the battery wiring itself is. Let me know. Anyway, where were we? Right. So, as we know, Chase Briscoe won the race, and he did a really good job, and he's really good there. And Darlington is the Southern 500 is a crown jewel race in NASCAR. So, like, and like, I was listening to the Dale Jr. download today, and he's talking about how, yeah, it's great because now we can kind of focus on our worst track in the second round of the playoffs, which for them apparently is New Hampshire. So, like, he could finish stone dead last in the next two races, not give a fuck. Obviously, momentum is a thing, and carrying more points into the second round is obviously another big thing. But he's in a situation where it's just, if they wreck, he's good. You know, I forget the site, and I probably should have looked at it, but they do like the old Winston Cup standings every week. So they take the modern races, the modern results, and they apply the old point system to it. And I think they got Chase Elliott out in front by 14 points over Briscoe. Just about 4 positions on track, something of that nature. So, but Briscoe, if he would, in that system, if he wanted to win the championship, would have to do really well at Gateway in St. Louis this week. He'd have to do really well at the next race. Like, every race matters where, okay, every race does matter under this format. So, but one driver doesn't have to give an F. He's on to the next round. You know, his season just got shortened by 2 races. Theoretically speaking, again, they want to do their best they can in every race, but so it's just, but again, for like the guys on the bubble and all this other sort of stuff, does lead to sort of exciting stuff. So like, okay, 39 cars, or I guess in this point, 15 cars, have got to try to bust their ass to make sure they move on well, so to speak. Sean talking about his car. The 12-volt port up front was so rusty and hurt itself in its confusion, and the battery itself is kind of old, and it got drained dead multiple times during the revival. It got me home, but it didn't like me accidentally leaving the parking lights on. That's that. But like, what do you, when you say ports up front, what are you referring to as far as the port? As I guess what I'm trying to figure out. At any rate, why is this? Sorry. And then also, current keyframe frequency is 826. Note that ingestion. YouTube, let's see here, stream. At any rate, and then sort of we got kind of moved down the docket, so to speak. Close that. What am I doing? Jesus Christ. Greg host. I had a list of stuff. Oh, one other thing I did want to talk about, since we were talking about the charters and videos I did and everything like that. One of the things I did talk about was how, like, these charters, and why does NASCAR want them back? Who do they want to sell them to? There's a theory going around that someone's knocking at their door who wants into the Cup Series that potentially is fairly high profile. And I made a video because, well, it's the Earnhardts. So that's the most viewable name in if you're talking NASCAR, right? So I made a video theorizing that, number one, Dale, in a podcast a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, Junior seemed to, like, he had this whole timeline set out for Ram and Mopar's return to NASCAR and stuff, like 2 years and they'll be in Cup. Like, it was just, it seemed very specific. And then when you can combine that with the rumors that he's apparently, now he has said nothing, he said he has no interest in Cup racing or that he's looking for a charter or anything. So, like, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm just theorizing that he did field a car for the 500, the Daytona 500 this year. And, he's an Earnhardt. And NASCAR's in their blood, right? Like, so I theorized that he might be working with Dodge, and Dodge might be coming back in 2 years, and they're going to need to either partner with existing teams with existing charters, or they're going to need to figure out a team who can go out and get a charter. I'm looking at Sean's comment and thinking, so, I don't think that's necessarily the case, right? Like, I think under the right circumstances, he'd bring JRM into Cup, but it's probably almost definitely going to be with Chevy, and he'd kind of end up being a satellite team of probably Hendrick, because Hendrick is a partner of his with Junior's Xfinity team. So it's probably unlikely that he's looking for a charter to get in with Dodge, right? Like, it's a cool little theory to think about. It's like, okay, these dots kind of connect, but it's probably unlikely. The other thing I saw is back when Ram made the announcement they were coming back in June, NASCAR and someone came out with an article that there's another OEM looking to join NASCAR, another big brand who, wants to get in on NASCAR racing. And most, if not everyone, speculated it was Honda. And Honda was going to be, like, Honda hasn't exactly been very quiet about, I shouldn't say that. Let's just say within the industry, Honda is interested in racing in NASCAR. And when you combine that with the fact that they're kind of having a big argument with IndyCar at the moment over the engines, etc., and they've even threatened, hey, if you continue down the road you're going down IndyCar, we're probably not going to be a part. So, again, theory time, tinfoil hats. Let's go. In theory, this opens the door for another massive name in motorsports who has a history with NASCAR. And that would be Chip Ganassi. Now, we know Ganassi's no longer involved in NASCAR. We know they were part of they've been for years, but they dipped. However, they do have a really strong partnership with Honda, i.e. with their, like, IndyCar stuff. So if Honda's interested, the first people they're probably going to talk to is Ganassi, because Ganassi's not shy, as long as he has, like, the manufacturer support. He's not shy about doing other forms of motorsport outside of IndyCar. Your what's the word? He's done sports car racing. He's rumored to be one of the teams that either, like, Ford or McLaren or Genesis is going to be partnering up for their hypercar program in IMSA. So he's been there before, and he's not shy about it. He just needs the right partners. Most recently he was with Cadillac. So, he has So Ganassi, he has connections with Honda. Honda's on the fence about staying in IndyCar as, you know, cost consideration conversations continue. Ganassi has been in NASCAR before. He knows what he's doing. Or I shouldn't say, well, he probably knows what he's doing, but I don't know if, let's just say hypothetically, he knows the scene. He knows the scene. He knows the tracks. He knows people in it. Like he knows NASCAR as a team owner. And he has contacts within NASCAR. So in theory, he could be potentially bringing Honda to NASCAR. Now, I will admit on that one, the Honda conversation has kind of gone cold. So, you know, who knows? Sean, continuing the saga of his 12-volt issues. It was nice to have air conditioning, cruise control, and more than enough power to climb hills. Also incredibly comfortable seats. Yeah, those damn modern amenities, my dude. They are... Ooh. Oh, excuse me. They are... It's amazing how little stuff like that has. And I mean... speaking of power and stuff like that, your Isuzu should have plenty of torque and or torque multipliers to get up hills. And at any rate, what the hell did you send me? All right, that's fairly on brand for you. Huh. Let's see here. All right. Excuse me, chat. I'm sorry. All right, moving on. Moving on, and we're going to kind of keep things in the NASCAR-osphere. The Xfinity Series was at Portland, which is, I got to be 100% honest, watching that race, it felt like Xfinity at times has its moments where it feels like the big series, right? You know, especially this year when you have like the star power of like a Connor Zilic, who's a 19-year-old kid coming in and just smacking all these veterans around. Potentially, you know, what does he have, like 8 wins as a rookie? So the Xfinity Series went to Portland. Portland's always been sort of like that old historic racetrack that you know, has had an on again off again relationship with, you know, places like Indy, or not places, race organization like IndyCar. It's probably more well known for that than anything else. However, there's been a controversy at the race this weekend, and that is, let me just pull this up. So if you look kind of where this red P is, that's your turn 1, 2, 3 complex. The straight is actually pretty long for as short as the track is. And every restart, someone was getting tagged, spun around. It's not a great design for a T1, especially when you throw in a stock car that are very, 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 very much not designed to... They're not the most nimble. They're not an Indy car as when it comes to like mobility and nimbleness and things of that nature. So where this little P and I section is right over here on like the left middle of your screen or of the picture is your T1 complex. And NASCAR put in some stuff, so if you blow the corner, you have to go through this artificial chicane, and then you can continue. However, there's a massive problem with it, in the fact that there's no real penalty in terms of time to take that chicane. I think they called it. You have to go through the A-frames or whatever. So guys, if they weren't going to make T1, or there was an accident in T1 or 2 or whatever, their spotter would ever be like, hey, take the A-frame route. Again, you wouldn't lose time. Now, on the one hand, that's good, so you prevent these pileups and these big, red flaggable incidents and everything. But on the other hand, Connor Zilich on the last 2 restarts goes into T1, locks up the brakes, isn't going to make the corner, just takes the A-frames, goes, and doesn't really lose position. Kind of important on the last restart because it was a green-white checker, and he just checked out. Now, don't get me wrong. He was the class of the field. I think in the first stage, in 25 laps, he had something like a 15-second lead on second place. He was just smoking the entirety of the field. But on that last restart, he locked up, and he didn't even really try to make T1. There was just a huge melee, cars spinning, busted up, all this stuff going on alongside him. And I don't blame him for not doing it, especially when NASCAR says it's okay to take this little chicane route, and there's no speed penalty. It nets out to being as fast, if not a touch faster. And a lot of other road courses, like say for Watkins Glen, and you blow the bus stop, the entry into the bus stop, you have to come to a complete stop, and then you go. Obviously, that is a massive penalty, both in time and just, car speed. So just bleeding off that car speed compromises into the carousel, which compromises you onto the back straight, all that sort of stuff. So obviously, it's not the driver's fault. It's just NASCAR not really understanding road course racing. And not for nothing, because it was in Portland and everybody else was down in Darlington, they have this rule in place where they've taken the strategy out of it. They set up the stages to where it's 75 laps, two stages at lap 25 and lap 50. It's well within the fuel window. So they come down, they have 3 minutes to service the car, fuel, tires, etc. When you consider that a slow NASCAR pit stop is 15, 20 seconds. So again, it takes strategy of 2 tires, all the stuff. It takes all that out of the equation. Thankfully, and I remember Portland way different. I haven't seen a raw. I'll be honest. I haven't watched a race of Portland in a long time, but I remember it differently than it was this past weekend. So, yeah, thank goodness it's not on the Xfinity schedule again. I mean, it sucks for the people of Portland. It sucks for the track, to lose sort of a marquee brand like NASCAR, but. I don't know. I love road courses in NASCAR. No, full stop. I like watching them go around. I like watching them make right turns. I love all that stuff, right? To me, that it's a good, because an entire season of turning left, and I understand there's a lot of different ovals out there. You have your big ones like Daytona, Talladega. You have your little ones like Richmond, Bristol, North Wilkesboro, all the way down the list. I know no 2 of these ovals are exactly identical, but throwing the road courses in, that's kind of cool, because again, it's like dudes doing this. It was like, what the heck was it? I remember growing up as a kid, it wasn't like Battle of the Network Stars, but it was like one of those things where you had, TV stars, or the hell was it called? I forget what it is, but the basic premise was you saw people known for being an actor or a news personality or whatever participating in athletic events, stuff they're not, that isn't their day to day, and it was pretty cool. Same thing goes for like in the motorsports equivalent of like IROC racing, right? Like you throw all these top name drivers from all around IndyCar, NASCAR. I think they were Top Fuel, a whole mess of them, and you throw them in, and a lot of them were doing stuff. You know, like the IndyCar guys, they were driving shit with fenders and a roof, which is not their MO. That's again what also makes like stuff like the Daytona 24 so cool, because it's this effectively the first race of the international motorsports calendar. I know there's other stuff in like the Middle East now, but like historically that's the sort of start of the motorsports season. But most other motorsports haven't even started. NASCAR, IndyCar, all those, V8 supercar, all that stuff hasn't really started. So you see guys from NASCAR, guys from IndyCar, guys from all over come in and take part in IMSA's big crown jewel race, which again I thought was always pretty cool. What the hell was it? There was another one. Motherfucker, I can't remember it. At any rate, so let's see here. What's up next? But yeah, like to get back to it, like road courses I enjoy viewing because they are different. Because I come from a sports car, IndyCar background, just as a fan. You know, I wish I had more experience in it. You know, whether it be driving or what have you. But life had different ideas for me. So it's like I said, it's cool to see them do that. As a kid, I always loved watching it. Didn't hurt that my favorite driver back in the day was Jeff Gordon, and he was the man on road courses. Not quite as dumb. Well, there was a stretch where he was. You know, kind of. You know, the dude was good, flat out, and then he got to road course racing, and it was like, you know what I mean. So, well, anyway, on that note, I know this is a little bit of a shorter one, but yeah, I think I'm going to call her there. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate y'all, and hopefully we have Greg and a full show